Broadcast Amsterdam.
Okay, we're in the studio. We have Ann with us.
Yes,
Good
welcome
morning,
to
Ann.
the studio, Anne.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy to be here.
Cool. So, Ann Doherty, we've been trying to get you on the radio for so long. Ann Doherty from Voedselpark Amsterdam. So, this is a new initiative. Can you explain then what on earth this is?
Sure. It's a pretty long story that's been going on for many years. But right now it's at a really critical point, the whole story of the Voedselpark. Let's see where to begin. So there's the Lutkemeerpolder, which people probably haven't been to before. It's a beautiful, big green area with expansive views. Was agricultural. Most of it was agricultural, so it's broken up into beautiful little agricultural plots with natural drainage, full of biodiversity. It's kind of between Schiphol and Amsterdam. So it's not a place you see every day, but of course these green spaces on the outside of the city are essential for the life of people living in the center of the city.
Officially, is it classed as the Nieuw-West district?
It's part of the town of Unvest, so it is part of that very western part of Amsterdam. So it's not a place you would bike by every day, although more and more people are coming to that area as Amsterdam sort of sprawls more and more. It's beautiful and it's green, and there's lots of pioneering urban farming initiatives taking place out there.
What's changed there? Like, why is that not just going to continue at the Lutkemeerpolder?
What's changed is back many years ago, the zoning for the land changed to industrial. So that paved the way for distribution centers to be set up there. And for a very, very long time, nothing happened, and farming continued there. And there's been a pretty big battle waged since about 2018 to try to change that zoning back to agricultural. And I think that a lot's happened in the past years, especially where climate change has become really the most pressing issue that we're faced with today, all of us in cities and outside of cities everywhere in the world. So I think for a lot of people, seeing this beautiful, huge green piece of land it's got this great soil. I can tell you more about the soil because I'm farming there right now. It's beautiful sea clay, which is very unique, very fertile. It's very extraordinary soil. So it's really painful to see that this unique soil, there's nothing else like this around Amsterdam. This is the last good agricultural land. To see this, the plans are to pave it over and put down some big ugly boxes for distribution centers. So there's a lot of opposition to this plan that's just gathering momentum because people see like, this is a chance. We need to take this chance. We need to make something for all Amsterdammers right now, for in the future, before it's too late. And there's many arguments, there's many reasons why this distribution center here isn't necessary, including the fact that there's a lot of empty distribution centers very, very close by. And there's other places where you could put down a distribution center around Amsterdam that wouldn't be taking this land away.
Yes, this is only one space. It's a unique place that can only be there. And you can't create that anymore. You know,
No.
It's shocking that the zoning could be changed without opposition to it.
I think back then maybe, I don't know, this was quite a long time ago, that it was changed. I think then maybe there wasn't as much known. I think it came slowly to people's awareness that this was happening.
Right.
And then, all these crises happening at the same time with biodiversity and climate and soil. And there's not enough green around the city. There's not enough place for recreation. The city's growing and growing. So I think that sort of snowballed and people started thinking, oh, okay, but there is this space. It's not being used. There's no companies, banging down the wall to move there.
Yep.
Albert Heijn was, I don't know if you covered that on the...
Yeah.
Yes, you have covered that. So Albert Heijn was interested in setting up a distribution center there. And I think there was a big campaign around that, of course.
You might have remembered there was some gluing of the Albert Heijn doors and other things.
Oh, really?
Protests
Wow.
as well at the town city hall. Held the Lutkemeerpolder to save that space. And I mean, that thing didn't come to fruition. But excuse the pun. But it's still under threat because of the zoning, I guess. And
That's right.
So I guess there was organisation to save that specific farming land, and how Voedselpark Amsterdam, this initiative, has developed out of that. I guess, is it because rather than rather than be kind of defensive and reactive,
Yeah.
this is you guys kind of coming together, different groups, being totally proactive.
That's right.
How does that work? Because it's very different. You're proposing actually buying the land yourselves, aren't you?
That's the proposal. And this is a very, very big coalition of people from all walks of life, all different ages. We've got politicians involved in this. We've got all kinds of NGOs, academia, students, lots of farmers and future farmers. Children are involved in the campaign. It's a really huge campaign that's supported by a lot of different people in Amsterdam. And indeed, it's much more positive. It's hard, it's depressing to fight against something. It's not something that, everyone really loves to do. It's nice when there's a victory. But to create the alternative, the vision for what is possible there is a very inspiring process. So it's drawn in all kinds of different people who come up with amazing ideas of what could happen there to make all of our lives better.
Broadcast Amsterdam.
So we're with Ann Doherty from Voedselpark Amsterdam. Now we are hearing about all these projects. The idea is to buy the land in the Lutkemeerpolder instead of basically fighting against whatever use someone else comes up with for it. It's currently used for farming and has been for ages and has really good land. But this whole idea of buying it, how on earth will that work? And how can listeners get involved?
That's a great question too. So it's really a visionary plan that has been quite a few organizations and individuals have been involved in coming up with this plan to buy the polder from the gemeente, from the city council, because the argument that the city of Amsterdam has for not being able to do something else there, agricultural or recreational, is that they really need the money, and it's worth the value of the land is in the millions of euros. And so our proposal is to come up with a really big sum of money that would be a counter offer that's a serious offer. And that's important. So we're trying to come up with at least 4 million euros. 1 million of that we're trying to raise from Amsterdammers, so from all of you listening out there. And then the rest will be donated by a community land trust. It's called Land van Ons. And this is a kind of organization that buys up land. And they've got plenty of resources, and they've said that they can foot the rest of the bill. So we'll come up with the first 1 million, and then we'll see from there.
That's a challenge for you listeners. So, I mean, it shows great respect, doesn't it? For, the money is needed by Amsterdam City Council, fair enough, you're saying. And it's great that these other organisations exist, because, without them, I don't think it would really be possible.
That's true. Yeah, it would be a daunting challenge to raise that much money. The other thing that's really important is not just the money. It's showing that Amsterdammers are really concerned about this land. They see that there are way better things you can do there than putting down a distribution center. And that they're thinking really into the future. They're thinking about bigger issues like climate change and what we want to leave behind. So that is part of the campaign too, is just to try to get as many people as possible to donate something so that it is a common. The idea is to have a commons, so there won't be an owner of the land, but it will be owned by everybody who's donated. And that what will end up happening on this piece of land, this Voedselpark, this food park, will be something that's a co-creation of many, many different actors. Anybody who's got an idea is invited to come and sit around the table and come up with some ideas for what could happen there. There's so much potential.
So it's important to know that it's not going to become one big farm just run by like one initiative. It just sounds mind-blowing and very Amsterdam, in fact,
Yes.
And is this something that has taken inspiration from other cities across the world, or is it something that would just be something completely new? In what respect is this developed? Yeah,
that's also a great question. There are a lot of cities in Europe that are way ahead of Amsterdam in this type of initiative. Amsterdam's got a great reputation as a very green city and is very involved in the donut economy, for example. So there's a lot of great things happening in Amsterdam as far as preserving green spaces and thinking imaginatively about how we can grow food around the city. Amsterdam's really running behind, which is disappointing for those of us who think there's a lot of potential. In Europe, Barcelona has an amazing plan for, I don't know how many hectares, but a huge, huge piece of land that's going to be used by all kinds of food growers, farmers to grow for the city. Paris has got some very interesting plans. Brussels, Lille, Valencia. There's cities all over Europe that are seeing this is the moment to do this. Now we can do this. Now we can buy up this land and start making the food chains much shorter. So the line between the producer and the consumer, we can make it much shorter. And this, of course, helps to solve many of our global environmental issues.
Yeah. So other cities are also taking this initiative. That's inspiring. And you can all learn from each other. But what I read on the Voedselpark Amsterdam website is this particular space in the Lutkemeerpolder has the opportunity, the chance to become one of the largest urban agricultural parks in Europe. So I guess is it just a bigger space than all these other cities are thinking about?
It's a pretty huge space. That's unique. Yeah. Yeah, it's 43 hectares, which is, that's really significant. I think what's also special about it is that the soil, as I mentioned, it's really very, very fertile soil because it's clay. Clay is special soil because it can hold water. And with the increasing drought that's coming with climate change, it's really wonderful that you can not have to water as often because rain can be quite scarce. As a farmer, I also have really noticed that when you're growing in clay soil, your plants can reach down and get the moisture out of the clay. So that's also a little, that's a reason why this particular piece of land, it's huge, and it's got this beautiful, beautiful soil that's been farmed, a lot of it organically for generations.
Because it fits in with a lot of other policies in the city, like shutting down the dark stores, or like putting a halt to the dark stores opening up in the centre, and then like the Rainproof Amsterdam project as well, it kind of ties in with all of those too.
It does, and I think that's why it's got so much support from all of these different initiatives. Pretty much every green initiative in Amsterdam, I think there are no exceptions to that, are thinking like, this is our chance. We really have to go for this.
So the thinking is that cities like Amsterdam need to have parks like this. I mean, on unrelated stories, I'm reading about, things like the distribution networks, like it could have been a lorry park or something like that. And there's already talk about stopping lorries coming in through the centre. I mean, what are those lorries delivering? In many cases, they'll be delivering food goods and all sorts of other things. We have the food centre, we have the waterways and stuff. But I mean, if you had a place like that growing so much of our food and stuff, I mean, you can reach it by bicycle.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I guess that's part of the food point, is it's about being local, but is it also a bit about not producing like gases and stuff like that, pollution?
Yeah. Of course, when you're putting down a distribution center, you're just creating more CO2. You're paving over land which can't then sequester carbon anymore, which can't, absorb rain, destroying all the biodiversity there. Whereas if you leave this open for agricultural farmland, you create so many more options. We, with my organization, Cityplot, we run 2 CSAs. They're local self-harvest farms just on the outskirts of Amsterdam. One is very close at the Fruithaan van West to the Lutkemeer. The other one's actually at the Lutkemeerpolder. So we're right on the front lines of this whole campaign. And it's amazing because people come out by bicycle and get their food every week. They have, a big basket and they come home, they harvest their vegetables and then they go back home. And there's no transport emissions whatsoever. They don't need to, there's no plastic involved. They don't have to bring little bags. They're taking dirty vegetables home, but they're taking really beautiful things that haven't. And what they spend goes directly to the farmers as well. So you're cutting off that whole chain of, kind of unnecessary, all these middlemen.
And it's so nutritious as well. It's practically still warm from the ground, right?
It is. And the taste is better too. And that's also because of the great soil.
Cool. I want to find out more about what you grow there as well and stuff. And also, I think perhaps next we should just cover, if you already know listeners that you want to support, or how this financing is going to work. In what ways do you think you're going to are you working to get this 1 million euros from Amsterdammers? Let's get into that. Let's dig into it.
Let's do it.
I'm out with the puns, aren't I?
Broadcast Amsterdam.
Voedselpark Amsterdam is trying to raise 1 million euros from Amsterdammers to buy this plot of land to make what could be the largest urban agricultural park in Europe. How do you go about collecting 1 million euros from Amsterdammers? It's not your normal kind of crowdfunding campaign, is it, Anne?
No, it's not quite like crowdfunding. It's very open. What we're trying to do is create a commons where everybody can come up with ideas. So I think that's really appealing. It's not that you're donating to someone else's cause necessarily, someone else's project. We're creating something together. So that makes it different. Another thing that's different is that you can donate, but you can also pledge any amount you want. And then you pay that at the end of the year if we're successful. And actually, any donation you give will come back to you if the campaign doesn't work out, which is obviously not what we're hoping. So there's actually no risk at all in giving a pledge or a donation. And every little bit counts, of course. We're, creeping up slowly. The money is coming in all the time, but of course we need a lot more. And we need just to show that a lot of people are behind this initiative. I think that's still the main focus now. Because
you're right. So you have an organisation behind you, that Community Land Trust, if that's the name, that probably could afford to buy this outright. But you need to show with the financial backing from Amsterdammers that our hearts are in it, that we want it for our city.
Exactly.
And put our money where our mouth is, and it shows what we want. But we still need to get the money. And it's all kind of, how does it work in timescales? Because crowdsourcing is often, they give you like a month or a week or something, and it's always very short scale. €1 million can take a bit longer?
It could take a bit longer. Yeah. Well, we timed the campaign around the elections to really put a spotlight on what's possible, what different parties think is possible, what not, and also put a pressure on the current City of Amsterdam to say, wow, we're here, we're a Green Party, we need to take some more radical action. It's not an easy thing, of course, to change the zoning. It's not, it's a very difficult bureaucratic process, but it is possible, and the current City of Amsterdam has the power to do that. But indeed, they need to see that this is something that the people that democratically elected them really want to happen.
Yeah. So these local elections, of course, coming up on March the 16th, and we're covering that on the station. So the campaign is focused on that. But when the election is over and everything, you'll still be continuing to fundraise.
I think we're going to fundraise until we have the land, and we can make something for Amsterdam there, or until it's paved over. There's a point. There's a really critical point where there's been a lot of work done on the land already, a lot of bulldozing, and the work that's happened up till now is still reversible. So that's really good to know that even, if we're able to buy the land, that we could actually use the fertile clay soil that is still there. There's a point which unfortunately seems to be approaching quickly where we won't be able to easily. You can always regenerate soil, but it will become much more difficult and much more costly. We just heard this morning that the bulldozers, they've been there all week, but this morning there was a call for an action for people to come out and start stopping the bulldozers. So we are getting to a critical point. There's also an important issue that there was a moratorium that was set by the City of Amsterdam in 2018, and the moratorium is that there should be no irreversible work done on the land until a buyer for the land has been named. Right. And that, as far as we know, hasn't happened. So it's a big mystery why this work is happening. So
is this the city doing the work, like prep work for selling it?
Yeah, the whole construction is quite complicated for the ownership of the land, but what it boils down to, yes, the city can stop this work from happening. They've set up some other companies that are actually carrying out the work. But yes, they could actually stop it. And it's not really clear. We haven't heard of any buyer. There was the whole Albert Heijn. They were interested last year, but that's off the table. So we're not sure why the work is continuing. Yeah, so that's why we've got people out stopping bulldozers right now.
Yeah, why? What does that achieve if there's no owner of the land? What are they bulldozing for? Like, why not just leave it? It's like, it's not dangerous.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. It's not like there needs to be bulldozed. Let it go until, and there is a moratorium, so that's interesting, but it's not being enforced.
It doesn't seem to be. Yes. So we've got a letter writing campaign now to the politicians that actually set up this moratorium. So we're asking people to fire off letters to them as well. All this information is on the Voedselpark Amsterdam.nl website. There's names of people you can write to, and not everything is in English. Most things are in English, but if you have any questions, you can always write via the website to to the people.
Right.
It seems like a mystery as well. It doesn't seem the transparency that you would hope for into finding out, well, who has ordered these bulldozers, what are they doing? And also, it's always suspicious when you have this network of companies and, who's making the decision and who's got the ultimate control. You want it to be really clear. So, and coming up to the elections, these are possibly questions we can put to some of our politicians.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. It feels like a really critical moment, and it does make you feel powerless because you've got all these people, and that feels very powerful. And then you see this happen, you're thinking, is there nobody paying attention? Is there nobody listening to what the people of Amsterdam are saying right now? Let's just sit down and have a discussion before we do something that can't be turned back.
Yeah, and I suppose there was such publicity over the last possible buyer, which is Albert Heijn. Maybe, if there ever was a potential other buyer, alternative buyer for that land, you can understand why they might want to keep that under wraps for as long as possible.
Sure.
So it's we're intrigued here, but
We are intrigued. It's a mystery as well.
You've got certain challenges to raise this money and buy the land, but you're also fighting the possibility that it might be out of your hands and there might be another buyer that comes in and gazumps you, like many other Amsterdam house people wanting to purchase land in Amsterdam or something, property in Amsterdam. That happens also. We'll keep you updated on the station because things could change there. Yeah. Let's talk maybe, because we've heard about how to give the money, the donations. Let's hear a bit more about this clay soil and what you can grow there.
On there,
Yes.
What happens on this land? What can you grow?
Yeah, because it's a large space. You've got 43 hectares, but a small part of that is currently being managed by Cityplot, which Anne is part of. And you've been already demonstrating what you could do with a piece of amazing clay soil like that. Can you tell us a bit about what you do with your Cityplot land in this space at the moment?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we, with Cityplot, about 6 years ago, we set up what's called a CSA, a Community Supported Agriculture Project. And this is where people pay up front at the beginning of the year for a year's worth of fresh vegetables, herbs, and edible flowers. And our CSA is a model where people actually come and harvest themselves. There's other CSAs that bring their produce into the city in boxes, but we really liked because of Cityplot. Cityplot's really focused on showing Amsterdammers that you can grow your own food, even if you've got a shady backyard or if you've got just a windowsill or in a community garden. So education and then the social aspects of growing food are really important to us. So we wanted to have this self-harvest model. And 6 years ago, we were invited to use some remaining land at the Fruittuin van West, which is a beautiful orchard with chickens and a gorgeous little shop and cafe and every kind of fruit tree and berry you can imagine. That's also very close to it's in the town of Van West, so close to the Lutkemeerpolder. So for the last 5 years, we've been growing there. This year we have 120 harvesters there, and we have half a hectare of land. So if you think of in comparison that we're growing for that many families. Last year we feel really lucky that we were invited because we've been growing and showing that you can feed quite a few Amsterdammers on a bit of land. We were invited to set up a small farm at the Boterbloem. And the Boterbloem is the original farming. It's a family that's been farming the land, part of the polder there for generations. And they don't have much land left anymore. They have only 4 hectares. And their agreement with the city was that they would need to bring in some other urban farming initiatives in order to keep this 4 hectares. So it was a bit hard to come in because they used to have a lot more land. And then we arrived, as well as another CSA, the Stadsgroenteboer, that delivers into the city. So together with the Stadsgroenteboer, we have another 2/3 of a hectare of the 4 total. So with Pluk, that's the name of our CSA, in total we have just about 3/4 of a hectare, actually about 2/3 of a hectare in total. We're growing for 200 families on our less than a hectare. So we did the math on that 43 hectares.
Wow.
Right, on the bigger space of
what we're trying
40.
to save, yes.
Yeah.
Well, and of course that isn't the way that it would necessarily happen. I think CSA is one model that could work there. We grow very efficiently. We're all trained farmers. We've been to farming school. We work with a big team of interns as well. And there's other things that could happen there. There could be food forests. I think education is really important. There needs to be school gardens there, or facilities for children to come learn about growing food. There could be little plots of land for people. There's so many different models that could happen out there. Worm composting would be an important one, for example. Just education for what is possible that people can learn about out there and bring back to their Amsterdam homes. All kinds of different projects could happen there. But there is great potential for producing food for the city and making the food chain very, very short from Amsterdam to the polder.
Now, let's talk about the Amsterdam weather, because although the land is really good quality, is the weather a hindrance? I'm thinking of, people missing their Mediterranean climate and growing their nice tomatoes. What kind of produce can you grow in the Netherlands? And of course, you have the greenhouses of, it's a big agricultural producer, but, space is not about that. This is more about biological farming, more natural farming. What's possible in that soil? Can it still be full of nutrition?
Yeah. Now, the soil itself is extremely nutritious because clay holds a lot of nutrients. So whatever we manage to grow there is very nutritious. And of course, we grow organically. We don't use pesticides or herbicides or fungicides or any of that. We also do a sort of regenerative or no-till farming, which means we don't use machines and we don't turn the soil over. So we really protect the soil biodiversity, which means the soil is healthier, which means the plants are healthier, which means that those of us that eat the plants are healthier too. So very nutritious vegetables. That the Dutch climate means that our growing season is not really long, but it's not really short either. So we can start feeding people in May. Our first harvesters come out beginning of May. And there's a lot of wild plants then to eat. There's not too much. We do have tunnels. So we've got these long plastic they're ugly, but they mean that we can start quite a bit earlier with harvest. So we'll have a pretty good harvest this year from our tunnels starting in May.
And that May harvest, when will that have been put in the ground, like as seeds and stuff?
Today, this afternoon, we're planting the first fava beans and the first peas on Wednesday. So we're starting. The first carrot seeds have been sowed. We're starting now. This is it's we've had winter break for the last weeks. We've been doing all kinds of other things. But now it really starts. And when it starts with a bang. So we'll be really busy up till May.
So that's basically the first week of March. Planting time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And, the climate is crazy. We had the storm last week, which wasn't great for us. We had a lot of material damage from the storm. It was pretty uncommon. But we just hope March is going to be a quieter month.
Kind to you.
Yeah. But this is what farming is. It's always, you've always got lots of plan Bs and plan Cs and plan Ds. So we do polyculture, which means that we're not just growing one or two crops, but I think we have probably about 60 or 70 different types of vegetables and at least that many different herbs that we're growing every year. And there's reasons for that. Like, it's fun to try lots of different things. People like diversity. People like things they can't just find in the supermarket. But also for us, it gives, some sort of security that if one crop fails, then there's a lot more right behind them. So, we grow everything, actually. We even grow things like sweet potatoes, which in some countries, in tropical countries, those are like a weed and they're really easy to grow. But we can grow some okay sweet potatoes. We can grow some great, like the typical Dutch crops. We grow beautiful cabbages. We grow great carrots, great potatoes, all kinds of salads. We can grow pretty much everything. And we always have requests from our harvesters of something. We have a very diverse, we have, I think, 40 different nationalities in our harvesters right now. So it's a very diverse group of people from many, many different cultures. And sometimes they'll ask something that they know from their home country or they grew up with. And we'll try to grow that too. So we're doing some interesting tropical Surinamese vegetables in our tunnels this year. We've been doing collard greens, which one of our harvesters from the US requested last year. They grow really well. So we learn a lot too. If people bring us seeds and say, hey, do you think this might work here? Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But of course, it's really fun to try.
Yeah, or I've seen a picture of one of those cabbages. It's enormous. And there's some nice pictures
Prize
on the
winning.
Yeah. Of the produce and also just, an array of all the different produce. But that's fascinating that you can grow everything. Like, say when it comes to potatoes, would you focus on Dutch varieties?
So that's a good question. We tend to be quite safe with the potatoes. We use some that are resistant to Phytophthora, which is a fungus that can really wipe out your crop. The first year that we started, we've learned a lot over the years. The first year we had all these really interesting blue potatoes, purple potatoes, red potatoes, tiny potatoes, huge potatoes. We wanted to try a lot of the old types of potatoes that have been saved. We lost a lot of them because we got the fungus. Because we're growing for, we have all these people coming every week. We play it a bit safe. So our potatoes, they're great and they're delicious, but we do 4 different types, I think.
That's fascinating because you're educational, so you're trying new things, learning all the time. But you're right, you have this responsibility at the end of the day to feed your families. So they're not going to be happy if you turn around and say, sorry, no potatoes.
All the
this
potatoes
season.
are gone, yeah.
So we're in the middle of a campaign to buy the land from Voedsel. So Voedselpark Amsterdam wants to buy the land for €1 million plus the money from the other trust, so that this area in the Nieuw-West, which was kind of called the Lutkemeerpolder, would it be renamed if you buy it?
I don't think so, because I think historically that polder is really important.
Yes.
So I think it will always be the Lutkemeerpolder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But the Voedselpark will be in the Lutkemeerpolder.
Right, that's it. That's it. And listeners, it's kind of time is now because, people of bulldozers are already messing it up and making maybe some irreversible damage, hopefully not. But how do you pull a team like this together? Because, Anne, you're one person, there's a bigger organisation. Is it lots of organisations working together? Who does what? How many people are there involved in doing this? And do you need more people?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So it's a really big group of people that are busy with it. Everyone's doing something, which is really nice, depending on what their interests are. There's people that are out flyering, for example, at the organic market to try to reach people who might be interested. People going around and putting up posters. There's people writing articles, letters to the editor of different newspapers. There's people busy with social media. There's all kinds of different needs for people to help out. We also just need people to show up, even if you don't want to lie down in front of a bulldozer, just come and show your support. There's so many different ways. You can see on the Voedselpark Amsterdam website, there's a what you can do page. So there's some ideas there. The number of people grows pretty much every day, and that feels really good. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what specific part you might play, but I think there's definitely just talking to your friends and neighbors about what's happening too. I think that's already a really big thing, and just directing them to the site.
How do you communicate with each other? Do you have like a WhatsApp group? Do you have a management committee?
Mm-hmm. There is a core team of people that have been involved, and I'm really pretty recent. I mean, I've been writing letters to the parole about this for years, ever since I first started farming out there, before I'd ever seen the Lutkemeerpolder. I've been writing letters to the newspaper and talking to people about it. I've only become more involved since we're farming right next to the land.
Right.
So there's a group of people that talk a lot, like every day, every week. There's a few people that just have invested their heart and soul in kind of thinking about this all the time and trying to get people doing the right things at different moments. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things, a lot of organizations that have been involved since the very start. And more kind of, there's ambassadors to the project as well. And these are people that sort of have an important profile in society, whether they be, academics or politicians or students or people that a lot of them kind of have big names. So they are becoming involved in the campaign and just saying something about it and talking about it to their network. So the idea is just to get more people to say, this is not really how things should be going, and then talking to more people about it. So trying to sort of spread the word like little bees buzzing around the city as efficiently as possible.
Good. So you're hearing about it on Broadcast Amsterdam radio station, but you should also, listeners, be seeing and hearing this so that people cannot avoid the subject, hopefully, because it really is a now or never for the city of Amsterdam, for this particular place. I just want to maybe have a little break now and then I think change tack and then just you've shared us the story of what we're campaigning for, but maybe share with our listeners your life in Amsterdam because you've been here for many years. I'd like to get your handle on, I don't know, your take on Amsterdam and your tips and things like that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
Broadcast Amsterdam.
Cool. So we're talking with Anne about the Voedselpark Amsterdam, but also Cityplot, and then also about the social aspect of all your gardening activities and farm growing, and just about your life in Amsterdam, because I'm interested. I know you live in the Westerdok Islands area, and then this is out in the west, and just give our listeners a picture of, your experience of the city.
Okay. Well, I don't go into the center of Amsterdam very often anymore. When I do, I'm always a bit surprised how busy it is. It was quiet during COVID, but it's gotten busy again. So my commute is really beautiful because I just go right through the Westerpark and through a little bit of the Bretten, which is a really beautiful nature, and then into the town van West, where it's just stunning. There's a lot of Volkstown parks out there. There's the Fruittown, where we have our first project. And then you keep going through green, and suddenly there's amazing polder opens up. And it's really, I feel like I'm leaving the city every day to go to my work, which is pretty extraordinary. Living in the center of Amsterdam, I feel like within half an hour, I'm out in the countryside and, growing my food.
Half an hour. Is that even on a windy day?
Well, that's actually on my e-bike, I have to say, that I use only to get out to work. On a windy day, on a normal bike, it takes a lot longer.
Yes.
Yeah. But the trip home can be very fast too, so that's an advantage.
But I guess it's not, because that's the main project that you have and stuff, but you're going to schools and other community gardens all the time with Cityplot. So I guess an electric bike is okay, I think, because
you should be allowed that. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. It does make life easier.
you are on the road going from garden to garden. And I guess, but you are meeting a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have so many amazing people connected with our project. We have the harvesters, of course, and I mentioned they're a really diverse group of people that really just want to harvest their own fresh local food every week. And I find that extraordinary because they go home with bags of, pretty dirty vegetables that they then have to figure out what to use in what order. So they're really amazing, amazing people. We also have a lot of interns that are studying farming here in the Netherlands at Warmonderhof. That's a small biodynamic farming school. These are all young people who want to grow food in the future, and they'd rather do that around Amsterdam. Some of them that we've had in the past have to look into moving to Spain or Portugal or France because there's not any land to farm around Amsterdam. But we're really hoping that we can create some land for them to farm on in the coming years. We have so many volunteers. We have so many volunteers that we actually had to set up a waiting list during Corona because everyone was desperate to get outside. Yeah. That was a nice thing about our work. We didn't really notice much. We could just keep going outside and doing our farming during the Corona crisis. But we have a lot of people that come out and volunteer. They can come out once a week. They can come out every day. They can come out as often as they want. So we have built a really nice community, and that's why this community-supported agriculture is the right model for us, because for us it's about bringing people somewhere, doing something positive that makes you feel really good at the end of the day. It's great if you're having depression or anxiety or just need to clear your head and think about other things, and to meet new people that are like-minded and really see a different way of life as a possibility.
So the fact that you had to set up a waiting list shows that there is a big demand for getting involved. Do you still have a waiting list? If people listening want to be part of the Pluk or one of those other initiatives?
No, we're just starting the season, so we actually have space for harvesters and for volunteers, and we would love to hear from you. We're running tours on the 12th, Saturday the 12th of March at both of our locations. So actually it's a nice chance to come out and look at the Boterbloem and get a view of the Lutkemeerpolder and all the potential that's offered there. So we can talk more about the campaign then. So yes, you can get in touch and we can show you around.
Is that on the website then?
That's not on the Voedselpark website, but it's also not on the Cityplot website. So I don't know. How can people get in touch with me? Is there
Good question.
I have to figure that out.
We'll find a way on Broadcast Amsterdam. I'll pass it on to Anne. We're in contact, and we'll put an event page. For the 12th of March.
For the 12th of March for some tours,
and because that's important. So we've got initiatives here. We're talking very much about the Voedselpark Amsterdam that needs the €1 million. Listeners, you know all about that. But also, if you want to get involved in the urban farming already, Anne's organisation with the Pluk scheme and Cityplot, there's opportunities there. It's different places, but the main one for now is Voedselparkamsterdam.nl. Get involved in that campaign. Thank you for coming and talking all about this, Anne.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Broadcast Amsterdam.
Broadcast Amsterdam, your local radio station, 24/7 and on demand. Or on broadcastamsterdam.nl.